Hello, everybody, welcome. It was a psych investigator. Everybody, welcome. It was a psych investigator. So today is Sunday, January 4th, and a lot of narratives and information has come out after the removal of Maduro from power and his move to moving him to the U.S. and bombing Venezuela. But there's several interesting questions because the whole thing feels a little fishy, and other than an egregious abuse of power, right, and a horrible thing that trash has decided to do. But I've learned of something that we really have to look at, which is something that Fiona Hill, the national security official who I think she was in the first Trump administration, right? And she testified in Congress about Russia suggesting to give Trump, this was during the first administration. So Russia suggested to give Trump Venezuela in exchange for Ukraine. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at. This is from Dave Troy. He's a researcher. He has for years, has posted a lot of very relevant information, factual information about the tech bros, Putin, Trump, and so forth. So here is his post echoing Fiona Hill's 2019 testimony to Congress. Russian hardliner Vladimir Zhirinovsky said the same thing on Russian state TV after Trump's November 2020 loss. He will take Venezuela, we will take Ukraine. And he will say to everyone, look, Venezuela, tomorrow I will take Cuba. I'm not going to play the video. You can look it up because it's in Russian, and basically this is the point, right? And then we have the other screenshot. Zhirinovsky's comments were made on the show Evening with Vladimir Solovyov on Russia TV, November 2020. Here's Fiona Hill's testimony from October 2019, describing Russian government overtures in May 2019. It really isn't hard to see where this came from. So the first paragraph here, and I was told by Amos and other colleagues that they had some linkages. This is, March, April, into May, where we were having a standoff over Venezuela. And the Russians at this particular juncture on May 2019 were signaling very strongly that they wanted to somehow make some very strange swap arrangements between Venezuela and Ukraine. In other words, if we were going to exert some semblance of the Monroe Doctrine of, Russia keeping out of our backyard, because this is after the Russians had sent in these hundreds operatives essentially to, basically secure the Venezuelan government and, to preempt what they were obviously taking to be some kind of U.S. military action. They were basically signaling, you have your Monroe Doctrine. You want us out of your backyard. Well, we have our own version of this. You are in our backyard in Ukraine. So, right? So it's very clear the origin of this. And we know that this is how assets work, right? They're not, Trump doesn't really have his own, I think he doesn't really have his own ideas. He's working under the direction of others, right? He's heard of all of this before. And some of you who have been following me for a long time may remember an ad that Trump posted. I talked about this a long time ago, I guess, about like there was this ad that he posted on I think 1987 or something, or 88, an anti-NATO ad on the newspaper right after he had returned from Moscow, I think, for the first time. So you see that he has for 40 years or so been following the guidance of it. And so so this is interesting. It's also interesting because the woman, now yesterday's video I did cards, and I have to say I did the cards not having too much information, right? Just looking at the situation overall. And there was this woman who was taking power, and there were deals. The cards suggested a lot of deals also. So this woman is the VP, and apparently she was in Russia while this thing was happening. Like, what? Why? It's almost as if like there was an arrangement for her to be there, and then she came back to Venezuela, and she's the one taking power, not the right wing woman that I guess won the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize. Remember? So that's very interesting, right? It's very unusual because usually the U.S. will take this happen. I mean, in Latin America in the 60s and 70s, the U.S. would help take down the left wing governments and put a right wing puppet. But this is the opposite, right? He's actually keeping the vice president in power, which is a very unusual, right? So, and the fact that she was in Iraq before this or as this was happening, it's almost like, what are the odds, right? So I'm going to look into that. I'm also going to look into the comments that Trump said about. I may make a different video, okay? Because I like to keep the videos sort of tight, subject by subject. Okay. So let's look at essentially Putin's influence in this whole situation. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Okay. So the first question is Putin's influence. Was Russia involved in some kind of deal? Okay, so let's see. Interesting balance. No, the past or children. It's interesting, right? This is a card that deals with children. You could see here, right? And quid pro quo. Again. So is Russia involved in some kind of deal with Trump regarding Venezuela / Maduro? So let's see. What's this letter? This is a document. Son, success, house. Oh, yes. Okay. So let's see this. Yeah. Theft, something shady. The house. Now we have here the White House here and here. So, guys, unfortunately, I had recorded this. I'm always trying new things, and I try this thing. It's called it's like a screen mirror thing where, because I was recording from with my phone like on top, I couldn't quite see the screen, so I used this thing. But something about this is my first time using it. It really messed up my like the audio. So it's very unfortunate. So I had to remove the audio. The audio somehow only worked at the beginning from the first question. And then I basically sped up the video so that I could get to the point where I see the cards, right? I have to kind of like think back. I mean, I can read the cards again, but it was so interesting that I want to kind of like have to do a voiceover. Okay, so we see here on top the question was is about Putin's influence. Was Russia involved in some kind of deal with Trump regarding the Maduro removal? So it was really interesting because the first card on the left here is temperance, right? Temperance, about a balance. And then the next card is the Six of Cups, which is a card about about childhood and the past. And then next to it, you have the Six of Pentacles, which is a card about debt. So it's about settling some kind of debt related to the past and or related to children, right? And then below we have the Lenormand 27, which is a letter or document. Next to it we have the Sun. The Sun is about something coming out. So information coming out. Next to it we have the house, meaning the White House, right? The next row We have the Diebstahl Kipper card, which means theft. Next to it, we have the White House. And then next to it, we have the Eine Reise card, which is a card of travel. So the White House is doing something shady in a foreign country and or related to a foreign country. And below this card, on the left column, we have the enemy, right? The enemy card upside down. The enemy is exposed, right? So the first column is balance, finding balance, karma, paying back something because of the information that shows that the White House has stolen something and is the enemy is about to be exposed. In the center column, we have childhood, something about children coming out related to the White House. And then there's celebration. Now, celebration could actually mean party, right? And to the right, we have quid pro quo related to the White House, something foreign. And then what's interesting, the last card is the card of the servants. Now, the servant in this Italian system, upside down, means obsequious. Oh, like, the employee who pretends to be so nice but is actually betraying you. But at the same time, in the context of whatever, right, it could mean that the White House has to obsequiously follow the orders given by Putin. Okay, so that's, I find that interesting, really. That's very interesting. So let me move on to the next question. So the next question is Fiona Hill correct in her 2019 assessment? Is there in fact a deal? So, right. Then we have here, so starting in the top row, we have the Eight of Swords upside down, meaning somebody is in a tightly bound, like really worried position. They could go to prison. The next card next to it is the Eight of Wands, which means something happening really fast. The next to it, I have the Moon. The Moon upside down is a card of madness. So it suggests that there's this mental anguish about something really scary coming out. Okay, then the row below is melancholy upside down, again, enhancing this idea that there is something mental going on, right? And what is this stress about? Love. Now, I've talked about how through experience, I see the card of love has a lot to do with sexual activity, right? So really depressed about sexual activity. Next to it, we have the Allegrezza card, joy upside down, which could mean partying, like too much party. So really worried about this. Then below it, on the third row, we have guter Herr, good man, and then worried. And next to it, we have seine Gedanken. Seine Gedanken means his thoughts. And so again, this idea that it's all happening in the mind, enormous amounts of stress worried about something coming out quickly. And then on the last row, we have the lady, fish, and mice. Now, the lady fish meaning women, payments. And next, the mice means stress and losses. So what's interesting, I wasn't really expecting it. I was expecting something, I don't know, related to the country or something. But again, we have the deal that appears to be, I guess, motivated, at least on Trump's end, by fears of information about who he really is coming out. And again, this suggests that Trump is really owned by them, that they have information that is so damaging that they're using it to push him to do whatever they want. Okay. So for the third question, we have, do intel agencies or the military, foreign or domestic, have evidence, recordings, etc. of the deal, quote unquote. So I am here on the first row. We have Five of Cups upside down, disappointment, moving on from a disappointment. Then we have defeat. And then we have next to it the White House card, right? Which is the Four of Wands. Now, what's interesting is, it's funny when I was reading it, you just live, right? Like with the audio, you look at sometimes actually looking at after the fact, you pick up on connections that you hadn't thought about at the time when you first looked at it. So we have the military and or intelligence agents are disappointed and they want to defeat the White House. This is enough to defeat the White House. This is enough to end. Okay. And then the row below is the card conversation. So since the question was truly about recordings, that is a yes. For sure, there are conversations, right? They were captured. Now, the card next to it is the card of the wife. Now, the wife is not really a wife in a marriage sense. It's a business partner. And the wife is upside down. So we have could be a shady business partner. And then next to it, I have the Lord. So a powerful, wealthy person. So conversations between shady business partners and a powerful, wealthy person. And since the powerful, wealthy person in the second row is right below the White House card, this powerful person is close to the White House, right? Okay. And then on the third row, we have the card 26. It's the card of the journal, meaning secret. Next to it, we have a card of a locket. It's the heart. In most of the Norman systems, it means, like I said before, sexual information. Then we have the snake. Snake means seduction. It could mean a spy. So it could mean that there are women that are so-called honeypot, or right? Something kind of like advanced sex activity, right? And not a secrets about this activity. And below the last row, we have a faraway path. And then the next card is work. And the card after that is a contract. So foreign countries have contracts to work. And I think it could mean that the Trump has foreign contracts and is working for these foreign governments. Now, if we analyze the columns, the first column is moving on from disappointment that was felt through the conversation that was captured secretly abroad, and or that I'm getting, yes, abroad. And I recall when I was doing the audio live, I did get the strong image of Woodcough. Woodcough being this person who is depicted here, right? Okay. Now the second column is defeat of the shady business partner related to the SEX activity and the work that they've done together. Now, again, who do we know to be the business partner of Trump and SEX? EPS, right? EPS. So information that is very damaging about that. And then the last column is White House, powerful man and the seductress woman, or SEX activity and or honeypots, and a deal about that. So again, the good news is that they do appear to have all this information, and it has a lot to do with the compromise on trash. Okay? All right. So the next question, number 4, what exactly was this deal? Let's start with the first row on top. Ace of Swords upside down. Then we have 3 of Pentacles. Then we have 9 of Swords upside down. So Ace of Swords, great. It's a victory, but it's not exactly a full victory. There's achieving a victory through dubious means. People working together to do this. And then a lot of worry. Again, there's this pattern that I'm seeing in the combinations, right? That there's people are worried. This is very stressful for them. Now, the second row, we have sorry, it's a deal. Let's just call it that. Good success in life. The next is falsche Person, which means false person, but doing something under false pretenses. And the next card, the last card here, 36, the hope. But also it's a card of illusion. To me, I increasingly see this card as a card of propaganda, right? Creating an image that may not have actual much reality to it quite yet. So people committed to creating this propaganda-like reality, right? Then the third row, we have old woman, which means tradition, okay, essentially. The next one, we have the doctor. The doctor is an advisor, professional advisor. The next card, we have the Lord. Now, the Lord is a powerful person. And so the advisors of these very wealthy, traditional, powerful men, okay? Then the last row, we have the anchor, meaning something stable, long time. The fox means treachery, long-term treachery. The last card here is the clouds. The clouds means doubt, but also something under the clouds, right? Something that's obscured. So obscuring, the goal is to do something to obscure these facts. Now let's look at the columns. The first column is again Ace of Swords, some sort of victory achieved through shady means, and a deal about tradition, something traditional for a long time that has had a long-term power. So there's a deal to achieve a win for these people. Okay. Then the middle row is people working together, fellowship is under false pretenses, under the advisory of professional people to do treachery. Okay. The last column is a lot of worry, moving on from worries, liberating themselves from worries by creating what? Below it, we have the propaganda card, an image about what? The wealthy people, the Lord. And putting the clouds, creating doubts, creating a smoke screen, essentially. Actually, it's a really good word for this cloud in this context for the card of clouds. So it's all about obscuring the truth, which is interesting. Again, I did think that it was going to show us something about Venezuela, but no. It's all about hiding, okay? And the same one. So the next question is, what is Russia's endgame here? Okay. So the first card is the Queen of Swords. And Queen of Swords, objectivity, facts. Next to it, we have justice upside down. So stopping the course of justice, right? Turning justice upside down. The next, we have the King of Wands, a crazy, charismatic man. Below it, we have the card of hope. So giving hope to themselves, I guess. And then next to it, we have malady, sickness. Now, I've learned from experience that card can mean being sick in the head, doing sick things. And we know that has to do with the EPS stuff, right? Next to it, we have the card of the young woman. And in fact, it's the card of the underage girl, right? But the name of the card is young woman. So, so that's interesting, right? So there's hope about the sick things they have done to the young girls. That's literally what this row says. Below it, the third row, we have the card of prison, Gefängnis, and then the next to it is something coming to light, something being recognized. And so prison being recognized, something very criminal that is very illegal. And next to it, we have somebody very, very worried. And now the last row, the clock tower, meaning the tower card. In Lenormand, it means institution. It can also mean the law. And then next to it, we have the gentleman. So men involved in the law looking at men. And then child. So men and children, which is very, very overt. Now, again, that's not at all what I was expecting, right? I thought it would have something to do with Venezuela. And so a few things before I get to looking at the columns. We have several cards related to the law. We have the Justice upside down, of course. We have Queen of Swords, objectivity. We have a card that can represent the legal system, which is the Lenormand Tower. And we have the prison, right? So the main concern of this reading, regardless of the question, even though I am a person who really goes by the question is very important, immediately you would think, wow, there's a lot of legal issues here. So it looks, right? Okay, let me now go to the columns, and then we get the full meaning. So we have, again, Queen of Swords, hope about related prison, ways that we can keep ourselves out of prison, and the little ways to prevent the legal system from finding out information. Again, justice, and then a second column, justice upside down, subverting justice, because the sickness of the men will come to light. The next column is the charismatic men and the inexperienced young girls, really worried about child. So we have this idea really that they need to obscure whatever is in the EPS files, because I think, and we all know that shows how involved really is with the EPS situation, both EPS himself and Trump. So that makes sense, right? They have to do something so radical that that it will change the course of everything. Okay, so it's scary a little bit, right? But it is what it is. So the last question of tonight's video is, was Maduro in on it about his removal? So that was, I find that little thing interesting. So we have the first, the top row is the Queen of Cups, upside down, emotional woman, something emotional. King of Pentacles, there's some financial issue here and a new beginning. So it feels as though he was promised some kind of financial reward. Then below we have scholar. Scholar means somebody with information. Somebody has information. And then then we have the death card, an ending of some sort, and waiting. Now, if you look at the card waiting in that particular system, it shows a person overlooking. In other Italian cards, the word it's used is belvedere. Belvedere is it's like, I forgot, there's a point on top of a mountain or something where you can see what's coming in. But it looks as though he may have received information of this ending and he was expecting it, or he was waiting for it. Okay, now then the third row is the man. A lot of grosses glug means great luck or lots of money. And then the card next to it is the card of the meeting, right? There's a meeting. And to me, it suggests that he was waiting. He was waiting for money and he was expecting to have a meeting point, something like that. Okay, and then below we have man, whip. Whips means aggression, disagreement. And then offer. So there was a man received, there was a fight, and then an offer. So what's interesting is that the overall, I get that he was, what's the word? It was like under false pretenses. It was a trap. It was a trap. You know what is the word? There's a word. When somebody is invited to something that was not really what, when they get there, they realize it's like, it was for false pretenses. It was a lie. They created a lie. They kind of like fooled him by offering him something. And when he got there, he thought it was something, but it's something else. Okay. Okay. Now on the left side, we have the Queen of Cups upside down, information. The woman has information or emotional information. It does feel like there's someone involved here. Okay. And information about these men. Then the center is issues with money that would create an ending and offer of a huge fortune. But then there is a fight, right? It's and honestly, the way the death card is positioned, really almost at the center, it feels like it's very central. So it feels as though it was planned, but not by him. Okay, that's my sense. I mean, he was, he knew he was supposed to leave, but he thought he was going to get a lot of money. I don't feel like what happened was what he wanted, really. Okay, so then on the right here, we have a new beginning. He's expecting a new beginning at this meeting, and he was invited. Okay, so, it's interesting. I feel like, I think he was in on it, but not necessarily for this. Okay, so, okay, so that's that. And thank you for sticking with me. It did take a long time to reinterpret the cards after I had lost the audio. Okay, all right, thank you for watching. Have a good night. Bye.